something that I'm pretty sure most of the interventionalists here probably do. Yeah, let's just go. So this is pretty much a short case. We wanted to do a...
Hello and welcome to TCT South Asia 2024. We are honored to be part of the conference, and I'm Dr.Arun Kalyanasundaram from Promet Hospital. This is Dr. Anand Manjunath, our very seasoned associate interventional cardiologist, who's kind of like my right hand. This is a 44-year-old female patient with diabetes who had an anterior MI about 4 years ago that was taken care of percutaneously. And
You can mute it. I'll just talk. I think the audio isn't particularly clear. So this was kind of a young woman in her 40s, essentially, who had an anterior MI about 4 years ago. Came to the hospital, had her LAD taken care of, and then just disappeared. I had actually emotionally invested a lot in this patient because this was right when I had started my hospital. She didn't have money, so we did all this stuff, actually got her husband a job, but then she wasn't there. And then, of course, lo and behold, she came back after she had a lot of symptoms. And there was and she had a diagnostic angiogram done, which showed, thankfully, the LAD stent was still okay, but she had progression in a circ. She had a tight and she had the RCA CTO. And until we did the dual angiogram, it appeared to be a longer CTO segment. And that's the first thing that I really want to emphasize on is on your angiogram done through the radial, and then they ended up really messing up the radial too. It really didn't appear that the CTO segment was that short. Turns out that it actually was. So I went in prepared for, okay, this is going to be war, and we have to do I need good backup. She was kind of a smallish woman, so I went bifemoral. And so I went with my usual amplats, and I think it was an XP35 on the left side. I couldn't really engage it because anytime I engaged the left main, it was dampening. It just seems like it was a smallish woman. The ostium itself didn't seem diseased. So my plan was this was kind of the day where Ujjwal and the team are coming. So it's all right, I'm going to do an ADR case, hopefully, and then ensure that she is going to take a medication, etc., then bring back and address the left side system, etc. They also had severe financial issues. So actually I did say that on camera here, but I just muted it because the echo part. So I have a lot of appreciation for what people in our part of the world do just because I think money many times is a real concern. So my plan was to essentially get this going with an anti-grid approach. So the usual stuff, take a microcatheter, take a workhorse wire, get to the proximal cap. And I'm gonna stop there because my case is super short, like I said. So number one, let's just go to the basics. Your choice of guide. In general, with ADR, what is your guide of choice for the right?
Yes, the antegrid guide of choice for most CTO, I think, in the right is an AL. So you have some back wall backup. The exception is when you have osteal lesions, right, where you really have nowhere for it to sit, in which case sometimes you just don't have the ability to do that. In which case you can take a JR and then Amplat's a guide extension catheter. You need a little bit of push to be able to deliver re-entry balloons and such as well, so an AL is helpful.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea for you and me to be talking because we pretty much think alike. So no, but anyway, I think the point is very well taken. My go-to is best AL guide that I for the RCA because guide support matters. I still tend to do ADRs, and from it's you live or die by your guide support, and you saw that even for Sanjak's case.
That's really
the
true.
guide support comes back to bite you, right?
Yeah.
Had a turnpike, got to the proximal cap, and I'll just play that first image. I guess this was the dual angiogram. So what would be your initial wire of choice?
Interesting. So looking at this dual angiogram, I see your proximal cap is right at the level of an RV marginal branch.
Right.
Right? And you don't want to lose that branch. That's a decent sized branch. So I would probably put a wire in that, and then I might have considered 2 or 3 different approaches. One approach could be a side base to get into the subintimal space, given that my upfront plan is probably going to be an ADR here. One plan is to just IVUS from that branch back to see if I can actually define the proximal cap. In this view, it looks like you can actually see just a tiny lip, and if you can, then you can even use a Gaia to try to cross-integrate if you're lucky. If not, you do a side base or an IVUS guided proximal cap puncture, get into the CTO segment, dissect, and re-enter.
Again, fantastic points, and I think Kiko is going to hate me because this was a day also when our IVUS, which is actually integrated, so we're there with the recording and everything. They were like, "Oh, this needs to be serviced today." So I don't have IVUS images for Kiko. So just also saying that for the record. But I thought I could see, I actually took the second approach, which is, I'm not debating if I should protect the RV branch, but I'm like, nah, I think I can probably penetrate. I thought I could see the proximal cap, so I basically went in with a turnpike and a Gaia, I think Gaia 2 next. Why Gaia 2 next? I could have gone with Gaia 3 next. I mean, I just picked it because it was there.
Do you use a lot of Gaia 2?
No, I don't.
I basically don't have it on my shelf anymore because the only time I'm ever going to use it is...
Here's the thing, we had some supply, and usually my go-to is like when I take wires, for example, I don't have Conquest Pro, I have Conquest Pro 12. I have a lot of Gaia 3 necks, but sometimes it also means that the Gaia 2 necks don't get used at all, and here I didn't think I needed a lot of...
that much
punch, so it's kind of like I think I can do
I almost took them off my shelf actually because I just don't find them useful anymore. Either I'm going to use a Gaia 3rd or I'm going to use a different strategy.
Yeah.
Right, and we use a lot of Judo 6 as well, which is a more difficult wire I think to get here. It's not introduced here, but it's a similar one-to-one torque control fused core to the tip wire, which gives you the same sort of effect as a Gaia, but you get some tactile feedback because the tip is fused to the core.
We don't have it here yet, so...
It'll come.
So, let's go back. So initially, Gaia 2 next and a microcatheter. Oh, that was the workhorse wire coming out and the Gaia getting in. And I'll just let this play. I thought I was making progress, gonna sail pretty fast. Oh, that might, okay. I might need the audio. Hold on, I'll just see this picture and then tell you what wire I did. Okay, this is a different wire. So what I did was the Gaia 2 next wasn't making a whole lot of progress. It was kind of like, it was getting some resistance towards the distal cap. So I jumped from there to a Conquest Pro 12. The issue with the Conquest Pro 12 and going long distances is that you have no idea. It's like, oh yeah, it feels really good. No resistance, it goes, right? It goes, but it can go anywhere pretty much, and that's what happened here. So what I did was I got, my plan was, okay, this is a short enough segment, and again, just because it's a live case and I was asked to do ADR doesn't mean I should do ADR, I should do what's right for the patient. And that's something that I, think, we got into trouble enough for live cases and all this other stuff. So I redirected to the CP12. I thought I was in a more favorable position at this point. And again, check in an orthogonal projection before you move your base of operations. So generally, your wire can move. Just don't move your microcatheter until and unless you're sure about the position of the wire. So assuming that your wire is where it needs to be and then advancing the microcatheter is a bad move because you're just going to create a much bigger hole following the wire, okay? So here, seemed okay, and I'm trying to advance it, and boom, I just lost it.
Oh, dear.
So I had to make the case a little bit interesting. So then I select, okay, Digital Guide. I actually went back to, I actually took a JR4.
That's exactly what I would have done. That's exactly what I would have done. Just because the way it was sitting, your AL was not providing you what the AL is supposed to provide you, which is back wall support.
The AL
the aorta sometimes are small.
didn't do what the AL was supposed to do. So once again, workhorse wire, same microcatheter, and I took the same wire that I used initially, which was the Gaia 2 next, went back. This wire was a bit beat up. I tried first with just my fingers, couldn't really get it to go, so I actually ended up using a torquer for a little bit. But then here I was,
Very
it
close.
was actually, I think, doing a much better job of intraplaque tracking as it ought to. Pressures were fine, life was good. It's a bit anxious, but it's all good. Advancing your microcatheter, something that you can do, right? Like, see, oftentimes when we say, okay, I don't have enough penetration, one option is to take a wire with more penetrative force. Another option, and actually a cheaper option, if you know for sure all you need is penetration, is to move your microcatheter further down towards the tip of the wire. That will increase your penetrative force significantly. And that looked pretty good. So yeah, I mean, this case, like I said, was...
You know what they call a short CTO? A good CTO. There's just no good reason to make these cases longer than they have to.
Yep, no,
It's great.
Thank you. Yeah, the other reason I muted was I kind of said some stupid stuff on camera. I'm like, man, I hope it goes subintimal. But then again, what's right for the patient, really. That's what it's about. And even with the JR4, initially the microcatheter was stalling a little bit, but I could just advance. You can push your wire further down. The key is, if you know for sure you're within the vessel, don't keep spinning it and pushing it, just push. And if it's tracking the vessel, generally tends to stay inside and not go intraplaque.
What was your antegrade?
extraplaque.
What was your microcatheter antegrade?
Ten-
Regular or spiral?
This was LP.
Okay.
And so you just advance your microcatheter. Once again, you'll notice that we tend to torque these. And with turnpike, clockwise actually works a fair bit, but again, you can go both ways. Exchange for a workhorse wire. And now, honestly, the rest is not even as interesting as the last case from a PCI standpoint. There's no IVUS images. So the key is what you do at this point is a couple of things. How much do you stent? What do you do, right? So you want to prep it. And in this case, I was like 99.99% sure I had not gone subintimal. So I did take an antegrade image. Also, the fact that I didn't have IVUS at this point. So I said, all right, let me see what I'm dealing with. And so what essentially I did was pre-dill, one long stent. This is a 48 Synergy XD. It actually delivered really well. Stented it, and now it's like, what do I do about the distal part? And again, this patient, the issue with this patient was I really wasn't sure how adherent she was going to be, how good she was going to be with follow-up. Said all the right stuff, like, I'm so sorry that I didn't come, blah, blah, blah. But I was worried because the more metal I put in, and then let's say she stops the medicines for whatever reason, I was a bit worried. So basically what I did was kind of a hybrid approach. I said, okay, so I balloon dilated the distal part, and I think I used a 2.5 NC, and still had some lesions. So I just ended up using a DCB. I should thank the sponsors because I got the stent in the DCB free of cost, so that was good. So it's like, okay, getting a free DCB, might as well use that for this patient, right? So ended up,
Good for the patient.
once you prep the vessel, so the key with DCB, again, I think most of the operators here are pretty familiar with that. Definitely prep the vessel. Your DCB, although it's a balloon, but it's really not a balloon, right? You want to prepare the bed pretty well so that you have good uptake of the drug, and don't try to cut corners there, and don't say, all right, I'm just going to take the drug-coated balloon directly without prepping it. Tip at least a 1-to-1 NC. I've also done many times cutting balloon prep, and then here I didn't. I just used an NC and it was okay. And then I think I put in a 2.5. Once again, the same thing that Sanjak said, like I wanted to avoid a dissection. So even though the vessel was probably a 3.0 at least, I just used a 2.5 long DCB. So I think the DCB comes after this. So this was the post balloon. And the DCB was from the distal edge of the first stent to wherever it goes. I took the longest 2.5 I had. There, that's the DCB. And that was the final result. So my plan in this case, really, like in terms of what happens later, is hopefully she's going to take her medications, she's going to keep up her follow-up appointments.
Gorgeous.
And then we'll, deal with the ramus. And she also has some moderate circ. At that time, hopefully, IVIS the left main distal part too, just to ensure that there's nothing there. I didn't think it was high grade for sure, but at least, before we, start messing around in that part, I think imaging is critical. So, that was that.
Lovely case. Okay.
So yeah, this is just me kind of going over the case, but that's pretty much it. Any questions? I'm sure like most of the operators here can this is not a difficult CTO, right? We went in with option A, which was antegrade wire, and that thankfully worked. Didn't have to do anything fancy, and whatever works for the patient.